I'm around, and this is an issue I've done a lot of research on. I would just like to respectfully request that you think about your families, your friends. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is an issue of the general welfare of the American people.
Thank you.
We had an 85-year-old woman strip searched by the TSA at JFK Airport last week, and we have no idea who is spraying us, with what. We have an idea of with what, but we don't have any idea really who is flying these planes. And the average law-abiding citizen can't even get on a plane without being harassed. This is insanity. The science behind the argument is sound. Anybody with a functioning set of eyes, a critical thinking process, that has spent any significant amount of time reviewing this evidence could see it as sound. And it's clearly the will of the people that's educated on this matter that an end is put to this. Please give us a unanimous decision to pass this bill so that we can show the world that America's taking freedom back and we're not going to be sprayed like a bunch of bugs. I know there's a lot of other speakers, so I would like the rest of the time to be reserved for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pauline, followed by Greg Fisher.
Hello, I'm Pauline Cantwell from Greenwich, Connecticut, and I came out today because I have been concerned about this issue for many years. I have worked at the UN since '94, leading a peace caucus there, and getting involved in the weaponization of weather as a weapon, and got interested in the geoengineering issue, which has been covered by the UN for a long time. In fact, they passed a convention banning the hostile manipulation of weather in 1978. I have 5 grandchildren on Long Island and children living here. I'm concerned about their health. I'm concerned about the health of people all over the world. I started doing a radio show in Greenwich, Memorial Day of last year. My theme song is Blue Skies by Willie Nelson. And I want my blue skies back. I want to wake up and see the blue skies when I get up, and I want to see them when I see the sunset at night. I'm tired of seeing the desert sunsets in Greenwich, Connecticut. We shouldn't be having bright red sunsets in Greenwich. I was in Texas early November. I met with George Gomar, who heads up the weather modification program there. I had him on my radio show November 15th. November 22nd, I talked about some of it on November 15th. Those shows are archived at www.wgch.com. We talked about a program in Mexico by a Russian weather modification company, ELOT Technologies, doing ionization of weather, doing rain enhancement and precipitation denial. We talked about a military corporation, Sky Blue, who came to Texas and got a permit. They said they were former military. They got a permit to alter the weather using laser technology, and then they disappeared this year. They can't be found. And the only thing we can find is Sky Blue, which is a space technology corporation in Colorado. I went to the Bonn conference in Germany and distributed Rosalind Peterson's flyers. I have Rosalind Peterson, California Skywatch, on my show almost every week. And I distributed these geoengineering flyers. Octopus on one side strangling the earth, and the scientist on the other side saying, just trust us, we're going to put all these chemicals up, and it's going to be okay. And it shows the CARE rocket, C-A-R-E, Charged Aerosol Released Experiment. That rocket went over my house in Greenwich, September 9th, 2 years ago, September 19th. My next door neighbor thought it was a UFO. It was spraying aluminum oxide and was seen by a cruise ship. Maybe some of you saw it go over your house. It was launched from Wallop Island, Virginia, to create NASA-lucent clouds. These are being done deliberately. I was taken out of the conference, told I couldn't distribute this flyer anymore. It wasn't authorized. And then I was told the next day it was a case of mistaken identity. There was no case of mistaken identity because I brought Rosalind as a keynote speaker in '07 at the Climate Change Conference, and we did a program on geoengineering, weather warfare, and all these issues, and they know what I'm talking about, and they didn't want it discussed. So I applaud all the people here. I am so impressed. I have been a lone person in the wilderness at these conferences, and I am really impressed by people's knowledge and their concern. There is a history of military spraying diseases on people. You can check out the book Clouds of Secrecy by Leonard Cole about programs they did in the 70s. It's not new, and this stuff is going on all over the world. When I was in Germany, we went to Zugspitze, the highest point in Germany, and I videotaped planes spraying jet contrails. I call them jet contrails that create persistent jet contrails that create clouds, because the Air Force calls chemtrails a conspiracy. And I don't want to get put in the camp of conspiracy because I deal in facts. When I do a speech, I want to make sure that my facts are right. So thank you so much. And I have a letter that lists a lot of the things I'm concerned about, and want to congratulate you for what you're doing, and I hope you do carry it further. And I hope we can spread this into Connecticut, into Texas, into all of the United States, and get awareness of what's really being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Greg Fisher, followed by Williams Ear.
Hi, I'm Greg Fisher. I'm here in my role as a director for Americans for Legal Reform. My point is really short. I'm going to put a material safety data sheet into the record for aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide is a known skin and eye irritant. She's speaking up right there. We're going to be spraying irritants into our airspace. Also, it's worse than that. Actually, I'm going to also submit a study from the American Thoracic Association, which links aluminum oxide particulates to pulmonary fibrosis. Just in short, I incorporate what prior speakers said. There is significant health risk from inhaling aluminum compounds, and Americans for Legal Reform supports this legislation wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you.
This piece of legislation is absolutely necessary, and it is also necessary that we not forget the Constitution, and in the Constitution it does mention promoting the general welfare, and this is in violation of that with all of the spraying that's going on. Also, we have to keep in mind the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, which says that all powers not given to the federal government of the states resides with the states and the people. And the 10th Amendment has not been used enough. And I would want New York State to do more of what Arizona and Texas has already done, and that is to claim state sovereignty over those powers that are clearly in the Constitution. What we have now is that the Constitution itself seems to be something that the federal government sees as inconvenient. Let's take a look at the Fourth Amendment. And when you look at the Fourth Amendment, it's being eviscerated by Homeland Security. So when I speak about spraying, I do want to remind you that if somebody's a little too articulate and has too many facts, they can be deemed an enemy of the state where there is no evidence of violence, threat of violence, or desire of violence, but somebody who might get in the way of either the military or corporate profits in the public interest of health. Now, I would like for you to keep in mind that when you take a look at the name of chemical compounds, keep in mind 3 metals and 3 nonmetals. The 3 metals is you have aluminum, barium, and strontium. Okay. Now, when it comes to the nonmetals, you're going to have the sulfides, the chlorides, and the fluorides, the chlorides, and the sulfides. Now, the thing is that you can have an enormous number of chemical compounds that has any one or more of those. But the result is, and I brought in the evidence here, if you ever want copies of these, it's fine. One of them deals with carcinogens raising the cancer rates. And the other one deals with lowering the fertility rates. The way the fertility rates have been lowered, and it was first discovered with frogs, and then it started to show up in terms of statistics involving people, is that first there's the obvious one, are lower sperm counts, but then was something less obvious, and that was the issue of women's eggs not being receptive. And that is where, well, what is normal is that the first sperm is accepted and all others are rejected. But the first sperm is now being rejected as all other sperm, and this means infertility inflicted on the woman. And what you find is that this coincides with higher rates of having chemical compounds ending up in the air and then percolating down into the ground every time it rains into the aquifer, and therefore it mixes with drinking water. So you're either breathing it or you're ingesting it. And what are the 3 items you have? You have aluminum, you have barium and strontium. Then you have, on the nonmetal side, you have chlorination, the fluorination, and the sulfides. And when you put all that together, we are having virtual chemical attack on us by our own government. Now, why would they do that? There's a number of reasons. First, where people on their deathbed have then have let things out because they didn't like holding in what they had to, signing these confidentiality agreements. And these are not confidentiality agreements in order to protect the name of our agents overseas. And I want to keep secrecy of our names of our agents overseas until they get home. But what we're talking about here is secrecy over what is done that affects health. So the military, not knowing the health consequences, is using us as guinea pigs. Then you have something else. You have contracts between the government and private industry. And if it's good for corporate profits and dangerous for our health, what happens? We see what happens.
Beautiful.
And next is, I'm not certain of this name because of the writing, is it Dave Handel?
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Or Haxtell? I can't tell what it says.
That's correct, Handel, that's correct.
Dave Handel?
No, Handel.
Handel.
Yeah.
Okay, you're next.
The aluminum and everything fogged my brain.
Go ahead, Mr. Cohen.
My name is Harold Cohen, and represent myself, but I'm also an independent researcher. I like to put into the record. I have a lot more. I bring a trunk here. The first thing is documentation. This dating back, actually originally started 2009. This is a letter, a document to Representative Steve Israel, which started in January 7 of 2010, and then was revised in February 2010. I gave this to Steve Israel's office, finally acted on it, and he gave it to the FAA, basically the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration. It's interesting, they responded on February 7th of 2011, 1 year later. One, they denied what I was stated. You can see the details in here. Second, what I find interesting is that they referred to a UN organization called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, okay, which is a joke. They're self-proclaimed experts when they're really not. To counter that, I'm going to give you a document which is 2 years of research on the IPCC, and this was done by Donna Lafamboise. There's 2 years of research on this. The title of her book is The Delinquent Teenager Who Was Mistaken for the World's Top Climate Expert. Basically, because of limited time, I guess I'll give you a synopsis of it. Basically, in her quest for getting the truth, she found out the following findings about the IPCC. The authors are frequently not reputable scientists at all, but graduate students. The sources that they cited in IPCC documents are frequently from radical green groups, not objective scientists. The IPCC routinely censors scientists who do not agree with the current global warming hysteria about greenhouse gases. Incidentally, CO2 comprises only 1% of the atmosphere, and it is not a pollutant, not like your fumes from a car. The IPCC pursuing a leftist, globalist political agenda and not a scientific one. The peer review process used in determining what articles get published by the IPCC is a charade. Only radical, green viewpoints get favorable treatment. The IPCC seeks out articles with predetermined conclusions that fit the IPCC agenda. I can provide a lot more data than just this little summary on this, on how they basically throw away data just to get to make the viewpoint that they want. Okay? Who can I give this to? I have photographs in here which I documented the spraying. I want to thank all of you for your efforts in the IR 2029 to establish that as necessary legislation, preserve our health, our environment, our water and food supplies. The bottom line, what it boils down to is this. Who is more important? Corporations, private interests, or the people? Also, all of us and you, all of you, are affected by this spraying. Let me get into some other things. What are the origins of the chemtrails? The origins of chemtrails was original purpose was for warfare, that is weather control. If you control the weather, you have an advantage against the enemy, right? As time went on, you had a development of nanoparticles. Nanoparticles are basically particles that are a billionth of a meter. Very small, you need a microscope to see them in the high power, okay? And nanoparticles of the same substances versus grains versus nanoparticles will act differently, and also in their absorption into the body. They can be breathed in very much more easily. They're absorbed in your cells and your organs. They may contain viruses, bacteria, fungi, etc. And basically also was originally used for biological warfare, you know, for warfare purposes. They may also, something else as time went on, you have very more than micro-miniaturized electronics. I guess all of you have heard the term RFID or RFID chips, radio frequency ID chips, right? They also may contain really miniaturized versions of RFID chips in very small structure, and they could be used for tracking individuals. That's good for warfare purposes too. You can track, the original purpose is to track your enemy where they are remotely. And also, unfortunately, could also be used for tracking populations here on Earth. There's a film, which I'll make available for all of you if you want it. It's a non-copyrighted and can be freely copied. What in the world are they spraying? I don't know if any of you have heard of it.
You're done, Mr. Cohn. You're done. Thank you.
I'm done?
You're done.
Anybody else?
No, you have 5 minutes.
All right, just one more thing. Look up.
No, that's it. That's it. You're done. You're done. Dan Harder.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Candell, and for years actually I've been wanting something like this to actually take place. Actually, my experience with this geoengineering happened about 4 years ago. I was walking through a beautiful Suffolk County park, Condrey Hall, and no, I'm sorry, it was actually Comset State Park. And a gentleman handed me a paper, all kinds of conspiracy theories, and I thought, what is this nonsense? I was ready to throw it out like it was garbage. And I started reading about geoengineering and chemtrails. This is nonsense. And I started paying more attention to the clouds and everything. And I saw sometimes days would go by, there would be just normal clouds. Then all of a sudden you have 3 days. Now the planes are always flying. They fly around the clock because, you know, we're in New York. We're near a couple airports. Obviously, there's Iceland, MacArthur, there's LaGuardia, and there's Kennedy. So planes are flying around the clock. And you'd have 3 or 4 days where you would see just normal weather. Then all of a sudden you'd look up and you'd see, and planes at that altitude, obviously, the weather doesn't change much at 35,000 feet. All of a sudden you'd see lines and they would start spreading, and I'd be like, what is this? This is obviously not normal. And I started believing what I was reading. I'd start observing. I'd tell people, I'd say, you're crazy. They're not doing anything with the weather. It just was bizarre, you know? And if you have 4 or 5 days, and all of a sudden you start seeing lines, and then it starts dispersing. And one of the really clear signs of the chemtrails is when you see the line, and all of a sudden it stops, then it turns back on again. Now, if a plane was flying and you stop seeing the contrail, does that mean the engine stopped combusting and the engine's going to collapse? All of a sudden, when they do turn back on the spray jets, when they have to reload the canisters, I mean, that's pretty clear, because a normal contrail on a plane would have to constantly be going, and they usually disperse in 10 minutes. So anyhow, to make a long story short, I've been telling everybody for about 3 or 4 years, so the fact that I could actually speak my mind among like-minded people that didn't think I was crazy, just kind of, this is like awesome. And actually, I also saw that there's a $2,500 fine. Now, I don't know how you can actually fine them. That's just like throwing a penny out of your window in your car, a $2,500 fine. It should be like $1 million fine. Because these people that are doing this have so much money behind them. It's a joke. The $2,500 fine, it should be raised to like at least $1 million. That's right. And you know, you just look around and you see the weather. I don't want to tie up your time, but that's my 2 cents. And also, I'm kind of embarrassed to be an American to see that they're doing this. Yeah, exactly. My mom actually came from Nazi Germany, and my grandfather's in a concentration camp, and you know, she's 90, and she wouldn't believe that they're spraying us because she loves this country. But the fact of the matter, seeing what's going on, it's kind of a shame to be an American and see what's going on. And it's kind of horrendous, you know. Thank you very much for everybody out here.
Mitchell, followed by Sean Brain.
Okay.
Get him.
Thank you, respected members of the legislature. Thank you very much. I only say this to address you perhaps in 1 minute. And what I want to say is I cannot dispute what they're saying. As little as I know, I cannot add to what they've said. But I want to give something in the way of history. I want to bring up something that this legislative body, a tremendous role they played many years ago. So I ask you to just follow me for 1 second. The battle of spraying, the battle against the spraying of things in our atmosphere is not new. In 1967, right here in Suffolk County, a tremendous battle took place with the Environmental Defense Fund. It was the very first environmental group in this country, formed by scientists that lived right here in Suffolk County, possible neighbors of yours. And they came forward and they said to the council here, to the legislature, say, listen, there's something wrong with DDT. There's something wrong with the spraying of DDT. And not only the mosquitoes get killed, but you're killing just about everything else. It got in the water, it got into the air, it has a long half-life, you couldn't get rid of it. There are questions whether or not it causes cancer, and it's by no means that possibly it's linked to breast cancer, of which Suffolk County has a very high incidence on a nationwide level. But the bottom line is that this legislative body acted. They agreed with the EDF, they acted on it. Within a matter of years, DDT was banned from the United States entirely. Entirely, gone. Within several years, the Nixon administration, following what took place right here in Riverhead, formed the Environmental Protection Agency, the very first body of its kind to monitor the safety of our environment, the very first of its kind. In 1970, the Clean Air Act, followed by the Clean Water Act, enormous legislative moves for the protection of people by their representatives. So what they're asking, what everybody's asking, is that ask yourself the question. We all share the same air, we drink the same waters, we walk the same streets, parks, go boating, play tennis, whatever. We live here together. Possibly right here, you, the representatives today, in 2011, 2012, maybe you can make that same historic movement that'll move right to the national level, the White House.
we got Mr. Brennan, followed by, looks like Penny. I don't know, Penny some.
Yeah, Perry Finkelstein. I should have been a doctor. Right.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Go ahead.
Many of us have heard the ads on the radio of late. See something, say something. Well, many of us have seen something, and we have a long time waiting to say something. I come from Ireland, you can probably tell my funny accent. It's not just over your county, it's over the entire globe. Something is going on. In the farmhouse in Ireland where I lived, no airports for hundreds of miles. It's not exactly, a big airplane country, a little tiny island. There's just as many operations going on over there as there is right over Long Island. I'm down from Connecticut, and it's crazy up there too. The trees are all dying, the spruces. It's absolutely absurd. Now, the question I kind of had, if you propose a ban, and I hope you will, a ban on the weather-altering chemicals, how do you propose to enforce the law? Because remember, in the aftermath of September 11th, it was 9/11, in which aircraft were used as a weapon. We saw what can happen. We all need to be more observant of our sky. Altering our local climate with chemical cloud seeding, etc., without our consent is an act of biowarfare. Our future generations' health will depend on you making a decision here to ban the spray. On the streets we have police that patrol it to make sure we don't go speeding. We have OSHA on the work sites. We've got all sorts of agencies. But who's going to control these planes if it's a black op? Who knows where it's funded from? And it appears it is. It may be not American, it's internationally funded. You have to consider that. And you've got a lot of evidence from people tonight. You can look through what they've given you here. Can you incorporate, perhaps in your ban proposal, an in-flight intercept based by whatever agency to take down for examination of these aircraft?
Yeah.
Somebody has to start doing this. But you either get special agents, which I would like you to also have civilian, non-related agencies involved with them. We need to basically get some agencies that can, short of shooting them down, do something else, urgently. And in fact, if necessary, on their unmarked aircraft, get the Coast Guard to shoot them down.
Shoot them down! Shoot them down! Shoot them!
We don't like to encourage this, but in the after events of 9/11, 2001, aircraft were used as a weapon on this country. It's happening again. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And it's followed by Christy McKay.
Good afternoon. I'll be brief. First, I'd like to thank Legislator Romaine for bringing this vital issue into the light. My name is Perry Finkelstein. I stand here and represent myself as well as the voices of my children. And I'd like to say my potential future grandchildren, but I don't even know if that's going to happen because of our health and well-being is being threatened at this very moment. This is a global issue. It's not just happening here. I mean, a lot of evidence has been presented. It's indisputable, and everyone here. It's not us versus you. We all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. Our children play in the same playgrounds, and this is an opportunity for you esteemed folks to make this date a date that everyone remembers, not just here, not just another hearing day in Suffolk County. We are Suffolk County, Long Island, New York, and this could be a stand that goes global, and it could make a huge difference. This is happening. There's no debate. This is happening. We are being poisoned. We're being killed. We're being exterminated. It's happening. Okay? There's no dispute. So we're all part of the same community here. It's not us versus you guys. It's not. I'm asking here for my children, for your children, for future generations, to look at this and to make a stand and to make right what needs to be done. You know, I sit and watch that for decades already. I can watch a beautiful clear blue sky go from a beautiful sunny sky to hazy, toxic pollutants, you know, and I feel it, I sense it, I know it. So there has been no accountability, there's been no transparency, and it needs to happen. It needs to happen now. We don't have time. We are running out of time. It's the 1% that is making these decisions. Okay, so look at your children, look at your grandchildren, look at yourself. Okay, look up in the sky. This is no joke. So the Shishindi people of this country, also known as the Apache, have a saying, Kadishte, that means all is made beautiful. So I implore you, okay, let's make it beautiful again. We have the power. You have the power. Please. Namaste.
Christy McKay, followed by John Martell. Christy McKay. Oh, Christy McKay. How about John Martell? Started.
I'd like to thank the legislature today for hearing the public. And I'm going to get into the definition of what you might not be familiar with. What is a chemtrail and what is a contrail? I don't expect you to be familiar with this. We are well rehearsed. We have researched this. So I'll make it very simple and very clear. When you see a plane in the sky and it leaves a contrail, C-O-N-T-R-A-I-L, that is the exhaust from the plane. That exhaust dissipates in about 15 minutes. When you see a chemical trail, that trail does not dissipate in 15 minutes. If you watch that trail, it becomes more defined. And if you continue to watch that trail, it will overlap and twist in on itself. And then within an hour or 2 hours, it will expand across the horizon. And within due time, those toxins will float down to the earth and contaminate the earth. I'd like to bring your attention to the date of February 20th of 2010, an event that took place in San Diego. The American Association for the Advancement of Science had a meeting regarding geoengineering. During that meeting, a person from the audience, a concerned person who was well aware of chemtrails and their toxins, had asked David Keith, who is a proponent and a supporter and an advocate of geoengineering, a very important question. The millions of tons of toxic barium and aluminum that's being dumped into the atmosphere that transcends down to the earth, he asked David Keith if this is at all a threat to humankind. And I'm going to quote for you exactly what David Keith, a proponent and supporter and advocate of geoengineering, said on February 20th of 2010, and I quote, "We haven't done anything serious on alumina, and there could be something terrible that we find tomorrow that we have not looked at," quote unquote. I'm going to continue on because we are pressed for time. I have brought some documentation. I have a 10-page document here that's entitled Air Force Research Laboratory In Vitro Toxicity of Aluminum Nanoparticles in Rats. Now, anybody who knows anything about the human species and rats, rats are used and scientifically accepted as an element of our world, and what is bad for the rat is bad for the humans. This 10-page document, moving along to the end of the page, the conclusion is, and I quote, "Aluminum oxide nanoparticles displayed significant toxicity after 96 and 144 hours post-exposure." And I will be submitting this document to the board after I talk. Another thing that I would like to bring up regarding documentation is very interesting, 42-page documentation. This documentation is entitled Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025, a research paper presented to the Air Force. And this research paper was done by Colonel Tammy J. House, Lieutenant Colonel James B. Neer, Major Ann Mercer, and Major James E. Pug. I will go to page 27 of this document, and going down to the last paragraph, the paragraph states, nanotechnology also offers possibilities for creating simulated weather, a cloud or several clouds of microscopic computer particles all communicating with each other and with a large control system could provide tremendous capabilities. Interconnected, atmospherically buoyant, and having navigation capabilities in 3 dimensions, such clouds could be designed to have wide range elements within our skies. In closing, I would like to say, please remember the world you are now seeing. There will be counterclaims within the evidence that will be presented in and around the claims of what is commonly known today as chemtrails. You will be told that all is normal and as it should be. You will be told that there is nothing to be concerned about and that everything is always as it always has been. Your eyewitnesses' accounts will be dismissed as unreliable. This dismissal by acclaimed authorities, well, you get the picture.
Eva Hogan, followed by John Bennett.
Hello, thank you very much. I am here in the capacity of President of Empire State Lyme Disease Association. I don't blame anyone up there or in the audience for doubting the veracity of the claims about geoengineering of our skies. 6 years ago, a friend told me to investigate chemtrails. This friend is intelligent, well-informed, and very accomplished. Yet she left it to me to look up in the sky to do my own research. Even though I respect my friend, I did try to dismiss her chemtrail claims. 2 years ago, I did become convinced that we do have a problem. I saw chemtrails in Denver, Colorado, and I saw them in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I've seen them here. And they don't just fly every day, they fly every day and every night. There are many connections that have been made. Huge corporations such as Novartis, which is based in Germany, have bought American companies. For example, Beechnut Baby Foods and the American Seed Company. Are they connected to this geoengineering of our skies? Is our government or parts of our government connected, or other groups? I leave it to others to answer these questions. I see planes flying which deliberately seem to be creating patterns in the sky above us, as you've heard over and over, sorry. But they make plaids, they crisscross, and they slowly dissipate and form a cloud cover which in effect obliterates the sun. So many of us are just too busy, and I've been too overwhelmed with concerns of Lyme patients to really pay much attention. So it's understandable that if you're not looking for something, even if it's the elephant in the living room, you're not going to see it.
Exactly.
Just as my friend told me years ago, don't believe me, just look it up and look up in the sky. I have 2 questions. Number 1, if these trails were only contrails or water vapor, or if they use the same fuel used by skywriting planes, the trails would dissipate quietly and leave no effect on our sky. So are they just contrails like the disbelievers would have you believe? Number 2, if normal, typical planes can fly without leaving any trails, I may be oversimplifying, but why not also make it a law that all planes use the less offensive fuel? Health-wise, vitamin D deficiency is real. Lyme patients may in fact be a group of the population who may be the most seriously impacted. It is depressing to suffer from tick-borne diseases and the lack of blue skies, beautiful sunsets, and sunrises. That doesn't help Lyme patients or anyone. If someone, as I do believe now, if someone is, or at least they do have the capacity of adding harmful chemicals, etc., to their chemtrails, Lyme patients are not healthy enough to withstand this kind of barrage for long. As for who is responsible for this, I don't believe it is our total U.S. government or any other country's total government. And I also doubt if it is all corporations, but we do need to find out who they are, and we do need to stop them. The IR 2029 is a really good beginning, and I thank you very much, and especially everyone.